So changing the subject a little bit. So I want to get to know you as a writer. So you write about fear. Why? So why is it important to talk about fear?
Yeah. So first thing that I like to do is just challenge the language a bit in how we construct a conversation about fear. And the easy default, and it's very common as a default, and I don't mean a necessarily that that's bad. It just seems to be a default program in our languaging and under our conceptual understanding in this world. I'm just going to talk about kind of the modern Western world that you and I are in, is we focus on the fear and we don't focus on the fearlessness. And so I never, at this point, make a principle to never talk about fear if I'm not talking about fearlessness at the same time. So let's just keep that in mind. And why I do that, there's a theory behind that. And I basically say is that when fear arises, there's always fearlessness present and arising as well. If you want to pay attention to all the fear symptoms and imagination of the fear, that's what you'll get. You'll get a huge fear experience. If you want to pay attention to both the fear and the fearlessness experience, then you're going to get an understanding and be able to tap into what I call the spirit of fearlessness that arises with the fear experiencing. Why write about fear? Obviously, this biographical background, as I said, there is a kind of growing up in a kind of basically a terrified environment, starting with the circle of the family system and how they coped with the world and how I was hurt in that world because of some neglect for sure. So I think I just have a natural, I'm not even going to say natural, I would say it's a cultural and a family-based orientation to the world, that the world is not all that trustable except for nature. I always had that escape. So that's why I often make a distinction between the natural world and the cultural world. And even though I know, philosophically one could say, well, they're all one. So I would just say that the simple phrase I can come up with, Ram, to categorize why I went to fear eventually in 1989 as a focus for research and education and my thinking, was I saw that humans as a species on the whole, and of course there's some cultures that do not include in this, but let's just call it the modern industrial culture. I saw that it was organizing itself in a sense like an organization or a business organizes itself on certain principles. And that's called, organizational culture. Well, I saw sort of the Western modern world organized on a set of principles that were probably, in the same sense, completely unsustainable. I learned this by the age probably of 14, 15. I was already sensing it, the way we treat the environment, the way we treat each other, the way, the society is going and polluting. I was very interested in pollution when it entered into my consciousness at 15 years old. Because my fishing holes were being polluted by all kinds of industries. And so I was real, we couldn't eat the fish anymore. So I had a very visceral experience that why are humans, here's the point, why are humans this only species that spoils its own nest?